What's up, guys? Bob Busker here again at ThinkComputers, and today we're taking a look at one of ASUS's mainstream motherboards. It's their P9X79 Pro, so let's check it out. Taking a look at the box, it lets us know this is the P9X79 Pro motherboard. Now there's a lot of features listed on this box. I'm not going to go over all of them, but something that ASUS really points out is their new digital power control for CPU and DRAM. They're calling that the Dual Intelligent Processors 3. Also, this is for the X79 chipset, supports Intel Core i7, LGA 2011 socket CPU, supports NVIDIA SLI and AMD's Crossfire X. Now what's cool about this, before I get into the back here, is that it opens up. So there's a lot of information here that it lists and talks about, which I'm not going to go over, but it is very cool. So if you're at the store, you can actually get a look at the motherboard. So you can see through this and see the motherboard, and you can read about all the features of the board before you buy it. Now on the back, again, there is a ton of information. Very helpful. Again, if you're at the store and you don't know which motherboard you want, you can read all about some of the features. Now, they list some things. They really go over this, again, the Dual Intelligent Processors 3. And they also list their DigiPlus power control, ASUS SSD caching, the UEFI BIOS, and the BT Go, which all the things we're going to go over in the actual review. Now let's go ahead and open this up and see what all comes inside. Now we're not going to go over the motherboard first, so move this out of the way, and we're going to go over all the accessories here. Now you have your I/O plate or I/O shield, whichever one you want to call it, right there, and everything on it is nicely labeled too. You have a 3-way SLI bridge. You have your Crossfire connector. You have 3 bags of SATA cables, and they each have 2 cables in them each, which is nice. And you have these. These are always my favorite thing. One of my favorite things about ASUS motherboards is these little pin connectors for your USB and your front panel connector. So when you're connecting these things up to your case, you don't have to worry about trying to see where they go. Everything is labeled, and then you plug it right into your motherboard, which is very cool. Here you have, which looks like a guide on installing an LGA 2011 CPU. And you have your, looks like here you have your user's guide, which also has your driver CD inside, as well as a little ASUS, powered by ASUS case sticker. Taking a look at the motherboard, you can see that ASUS has done a very great job on the design. It has a black PCB with white, blue, and silver accents, which looks really, really nice. Now, they've also done a great job on the cooling. So you have large heat sinks here on the south bridge going up into the PCH. They're covering your MOSFETs as well as your VRM power up here. Very, very nice. And they're both, these two down here and these two heat sinks here are connected by large heat pipes, which are going to keep things nice and cool. The first thing to me that was very apparent about this motherboard was that it supports dual quad channel memory. And what that means is that you have 4 slots on each side of the CPU, and each slot supports 8 gigabytes of DDR3 running at up to 2400 megahertz. Right in the center, we have the 2011 socket, and as you can see, it is much larger than the other sockets that we've seen from Intel in the past. At the top of the board, you have your 8-pin CPU power connector. Moving over here, you have 2 4-pin fan connectors. One is for your CPU fan, and one is for an extra fan. Now moving over here, you have another 4-pin fan connector, and you have your MEM OK button. And what this actually does is this is going to allow your system to boot when your memory settings may not be correct. Say you're overclocking or you don't have your memory settings correct. When you press this button in, it's going to allow your system to find the appropriate memory settings and allow your system to boot. Moving down here, you have another 4-pin fan connector, and then you have your internal USB 3.0 connector. And I like that it's in the center of the board as opposed to the bottom. This is going to allow you to easily connect your internal USB 3.0 connector from your case. The SATA connectors are at a 90-degree angle, as you can see, so that's going to make it so they're easy to connect even when you have larger video cards installed. Now if we take a look here, these two up here are SATA 6 gig. These four are SATA 3 gig, and these two right here are going to be used for the ASUS SSD caching. Taking a look along the bottom of the board, you have your front panel connections, your TPU switch, you have a 4-pin fan connector, a clear CMOS button, which I always like to see on motherboards. You have 3 internal USB 3.0 connections, you have your EPU button, you have a power and reset switch, which I also always like to see. It just makes things a lot easier, especially when you're overclocking or you're building a system. Power and reset right on the board is very nice. And then you also have your LED indicators here. So if your system is not booting or it's getting to a certain point and it stops, this will display a numerical code that you can look up, and it will tell you what's halting the system from actually starting. As far as expansion slots go, you have 2 PCI Express X1 slots, 1, 2, 3, 4 PCI Express X16 slots. Now the X79 platform supports 32 PCI Express lanes, so you're going to be able to do 3-way SLI and quad GPU SLI on this board, as well as Crossfire X. Also, if you can see, there is another 4-pin fan connector right there that can be used for your exhaust fan on your case. As far as connections on the board, there are quite a lot. Let's start on the left-hand side here. And you have 4 USB 2.0 ports. And what's interesting about the bottom port, as you can see, it is color-coded white. And what that is you can see the BIOS reset switch right there. Now, if you have nothing plugged in and you hit that, that is just going to reset your BIOS. Now, say you want to upgrade your BIOS, and sometimes it can be a pain. A lot of times it's very easy, but if you don't know what you're doing, it may be hard. So what you're going to do is you're going to load your BIOS onto a flash drive, plug it into that bottom port, and hit that BIOS button. And what that's going to do, that's going to instantly flash your BIOS to the BIOS that is on your flash drive. Very, very easy. Now, moving over, you have your Ethernet port, 2 USB 3.0 ports, optical audio. You have 2 eSATA ports, 2 more USB 3.0 ports, 2 more USB 2.0 ports, Bluetooth, and then you have your audio. So this concludes our unboxing and overview video of the P9X79 Pro motherboard from ASUS. Check back very soon on ThinkComputers.org for a full review. And remember, if you like our unboxing videos, make sure you subscribe. Catch you guys later.